Greetings and welcome back to the lab. I've made a few updates to the lab itself. Hopefully the lighting is better. I think I've got the audio figured out now, but today I want to talk about the retro TV project that I've been working on. I'm shooting for a 70s retro console TV. Would be the kind of TV that was wide versus only so much. And then imagine like a 25-inch tube TV sitting in there in the middle. There's usually a speaker on the left, speaker on the right, something like that. And you could potentially open the lid on this thing. So you could have a record player in there, or, over on the side, you could have a radio, or I've even seen like tape decks or something that kind of mounted vertically in there. Interesting things that you could have in those. But what I'm trying to do is replicate at least the TV portion of that. And then maybe I'll explore some other how to make like a little motor-powered turntable or something like that. I wouldn't be able to play any actual records on it, but just something interesting that I want to try and build. And so I've been doing this in phases. And so phase one, I started with something like this, where I don't actually have the diffusion material permanently attached here. I can take the circuit board out the back. I can kind of push it down. You can kind of see it would look like that. I've got the circuit board in here. There were issues. This is why we do prototyping. And I could plug this in, but I have basically the same thing in a slightly different version here. The reason there's a wire hanging off of this is because I didn't line up the hole properly. If you compare the two, you can see the difference. This one is running this way, which it shouldn't be, and this one's running that way. So this is the corrected version, and I can give you a quick sample of what that looks like. We'll plug it in. And so this was just phase one. And these are all RGB lights that go slow and then fast, and they're behind the diffusion material. So my apologies if you're sensitive. You probably want to turn away. I'm going to turn off the lights so you can see this a little bit better. And that's kind of what that looks like. So that was at least a proof of concept that I could get this working. And it taught me a bunch of things, which I have now applied to phase two. And I've done my first build. I would have recorded the build, but it wasn't all that exciting. And here is the tabletop version of that TV. You can see the knobs and a speaker grate. So if you can imagine from the 70s, an old 25-inch TV, but this is 1/12 scale. So it's a little over 2 inches diagonal. And this one was fun to try and put together. Attaching the diffusion material is becoming more and more of a problem, especially at 1/12 scale. So I've got an idea how I'm going to fix that, and I'll be exploring that in the next version or the next phase. I'm not sure if it's going to be phase 3 or just 2A, but let's plug this in so you can actually see what this looks like. Now for that, I've got a pigtail coming off of this because it was almost impossible to figure out how I could fit one of those power connectors like this into this design. You can see the difference in size. It actually doesn't look like it's all that much bigger necessarily, but the difference is in the screen size. So trying to fit this connector in there was a little bit difficult. So what I ended up doing was, on the back side of this, there are two circuit boards. This one, I'll explain in a minute. This one on this side is just to cover up. There's two cavities here, and there's a section in between, so the light doesn't bleed over to the next section. And the thinking was that when I go up in scale, I could put a speaker in here. I might be able to put some kind of Bluetooth device in there or something like that, so we can have sound coming out of it. But let's go ahead and plug this in so you can see there are additional problems, but we'll go through that. Let me get that plugged in the right way. And you're not going to see anything just yet because I've got a channel and a brightness control. The channel I can actually turn because there's no way I could reasonably try and put knobs that were actually functional here. So these are just printed knobs. Actually, the larger versions of this will have a different form of a knob that has a square piece on the top of it, but you'll see that eventually. So again, let me turn off the lights and I'll demonstrate. And it is plugged in. It's not showing anything because the channel selector is in the off position. If I turn it to channel 1, I get yellow light. Now, this was supposed to be red, and I think I figured out why. I think the switch that I have here, it's a rotary switch, and I think what's going on is this is about a 30-year-old switch, and since then they've standardized the pinout. The pinout on this matched the pinout that I used, but where I was expecting the signal to come out for the red LEDs, it came out for the yellow LED, and so on. So you're going to see it was supposed to be red, green, blue, and yellow in that order. Now, it will also, this will shut off if I leave it for too long. Or is that still on? Can't tell. Well, let's switch to the next channel. Now you got blue. Oh, it's flickering on me now. It's doing something weird, but you should be able to get the idea. There is the green and yellow. I know what it is. It's the power bank is different from when I tried to test this before. If I go to the next one, we should have, interesting, we should have red, and this is so dim you can't see it. So what I'm going to do is switch power banks. That is something new that I just learned, and I'm going to have to address in the updates. Let's see if we can't plug this in. Got to do it the right way. There we go. We're back to green, nice and bright. But now we've got green, yellow, and I can't remember. Let me just keep flipping through. There's the red. There's the red with the yellow. Next should be the red with the green, which you can't see the red because the green is swamping it out. Then we should have red, yellow, and green, and again, green is swamping everything out. Finally, we get to blue, and then blue and yellow, which should make white, but you can barely see the yellow in there. But the point is, it's switching a bunch of these on and off, and let me turn the lights back on. And you'll notice that I've rotated all the way back around to channel 0, so it's turned off again. So that's that. I wanted to show you the circuit boards themselves. So I'll get those out. And we've got the main circuit board and that little panel on the side. And when I did this, I thought I needed 2 screws to mount the panel on the side. Normally I will, but at this scale, I can get away with it with just 1 screw. The idea is if I have 2 screws in 2 corners, it'll hold the whole thing in. It's much less likely. I mean, technically, if you really pulled on it enough, you could get it to pop out on that side. I'm not too worried about that. This is the circuit board that is 4 sets of 4 LEDs wired in parallel, but arranged in such a way that they're supposed to evenly distribute the light, except if one particular one is swamping everything else out, which is the problem I'm having. So but that's where we are on this. And on the back side is the channel selector and the brightness, and I need to reselect and redesign with my resistors to figure out which ones, so I'm not going to bother telling you what resistors I use just yet. I will be putting all of this up on the forum where I have all of my circuit boards for download for projects like this if you want to follow along or you want to try and build something similar. Those will be available eventually, but right now we're still in prototyping stage. So that's it. I just wanted to show you this and tell you how far along I am on phase 2. So that's pretty much it. I appreciate you watching. Thanks, and take care of yourself.